Welcome to WBC Faster Together, the LinkedIn Live series of Women Business Collaborative. I'm Gwen Young, the CEO of WBC. WBC is an unprecedented alliance of over 80 organizations focused on women's leadership in business, diversity, equity, inclusion, and hundreds of business leaders that are building a movement to achieve equal position, pay, and power for all women in business. Through collaboration, advocacy, action, and accountability, we are mobilizing thousands to create momentum and accelerate the pace of change. WBC lives its commitment to DEI, and members of our leadership, staff, board of directors, and our WBC champions include more than 34% people of color. And every one of our 4 action initiatives has DEI goals for 2025 and 2030. So please check the chat for the action initiatives through which we aim to accelerate change. And as always, join our movement at wbcollaborative.org. So each week in this series, we offer different ways to advocate change and accelerate impact by presenting data, research, and best practices, by lifting up the power of women's voices for change, and by showcasing leaders like we have today committed to allyship, inclusivity, driving corporate purpose across the entire business landscape. So today I am delighted to be joined by 2 incredible leaders in the WBC community, Dr. Tacy Byham, the CEO of DDI, and Laine Gandy, the director at the Adecco Group US Foundation. And with Tacy and Laine, we're going to discuss how leaders and organizations can ensure they're building and fostering robust strategies designed to engage, retain, and promote talent. In WBC's Company with Purpose Toolkit, which we released at the end of 2023, we outlined 3 critical pillars of corporate purpose: brand, community engagement, and our focus for today's conversation, talent. So no matter the industry or function, we hear over and over again that finding and great talent continues to be a primary area of focus for companies, whether you label that workplace culture or employee engagement. And the way we work has changed exponentially over the past few years, and organizations must be laser focused on building inclusive cultures, cultures that are purposeful, and cultures that are intentionally designed to attract prospective talent and engaging existing employees. So let's talk about this intentionality. Let's talk about how we can do it. So first, Tacy, Laine, welcome. Great to see you both.
Great to see you, Gwen.
Good to be here.
And Tacy, by the way, congratulations to DDI being named the Forbes America's Best Employers in 2024. You're on the list, so congratulations.
Yes, it was exciting, and we had a little bit of a celebration. So thank you to all of our teams who nominated us, and we're just putting the work that we do into practice inside our company. It's exciting.
That is exciting. It's perfect. So let's set the stage a little bit, right? We just talked about how recruiting and training great talent continues to be a major area of focus for many companies. Laine, what are your observations? How have talent strategies around recruitment and retention changed over the last few years, and where are we headed?
It's been an interesting few years, Gwen. Coming out of COVID, we saw the great resignation, right? Employees were choosing to actively leave employers, and they were seeking jobs with companies that had purpose, and one step further had purpose that aligned with their values. So there was really a race for talent. Employers wanted to get the best people in their seats and make sure that they were committed to purpose. Right now, though, in this current economic climate that we're in, we've kind of turned a corner, and companies are really focused on making sure that they're agile. They're expecting and wanting to do more with less, and that's especially important when it comes to talent strategy. What we're seeing is the winners are going to be those who choose to invest in the best. They've gotten that talent in the seat. They're continuing to focus on getting the best talent in the seats and then invest in them to be the leaders of tomorrow, close those skills gaps, especially with the rise of AI in our workforce. It's really making sure that we're focused on getting people ready to lead and succeed.
So Tacy, that's where we bring you in, leading and succeeding. Tell us what you're seeing, and tell us a bit about, what DDI is learning in this time.
Sure. I couldn't agree more. And our firm focuses on leadership. So after Adecco helps with hiring, we help making sure that you have the right people who are promoted, and then leaders, and we touch about 3 million leaders around the world every year, have the right skills to create the right culture around there. We also do a considerable amount of research. So to answer this question, I actually want to pull from some research that we have recently released. For 20 years, we have been doing research. So what I'm going to tell you is some really interesting longitudinal changes that we have seen to answer your question. This most recent research was 1,800 HR professionals, 1,500 organizations, 14,000 leaders. And for this answer, we asked an unprecedented number of 529 CEOs what's keeping you awake at night. And what was really interesting is for the first time we have ever seen this, that they're given a whole lot of talent challenges, and challenges such as things like the global downturn and the recessions that you're having, economic type of challenges, and focusing on digital transformation for your organization. Well, the talent challenges at the top were the ones that made the biggest difference. So the number one was attracting and retaining top talent. It's on the minds of CEOs. Number two was developing that next generation of leaders. And number three was maintaining and engaging the workforce. In 20 years, we have never seen 3 talent challenges at the top, trumping the economic and business challenges. So to Laine's point, the table is set for us because our CEOs are worried about it. They want to be able to fix the problem, and they're going to be turning to us as consultants, as advisors, as in-house HR, talent management, executive, succession management, whatever your title might be, for support here. And you're going to have backing both in words and in dollars.
What are some of those, Laine, what do some of those best practices look like? Because she's saying, like, what you're saying, the intentionality's there. That's what I'm hearing. That's what we're reading, right, as well. So what are we seeing? You've got talent, you've got the dollars, you said, and the resources. What are some of those best practices?
It's just like you said, the talent and the dollars. And what we're seeing is the best practices, the winners right now. There's 2 things. First is they're beginning with the end in mind. They're not looking at learning and development and developing their leaders as a discretionary spending line. Growing the talent that you have has to be a priority. And it's really important to remember that by choosing to invest in someone, by putting them through a program like our Adecco Group US Foundation's Engage Women's Leadership Development Program, or sending them to a conference, or bringing people together for a team training, right? That's a psychological raise. In a moment where we're really tight on dollars, psychological raises are really important. So by investing in your people and bringing them, for example, to a conference, you're not just gaining technical skills, they're gaining cross-functional collaboration. They're getting networking where they're going to start tapping on people, and that's going to give them ideas to push their own business forward. And at the end of the day, that's going to foster loyalty to your company, and it's going to motivate productivity. So the first thing is making sure that you're not looking at L&D as a discretionary spending. You're beginning with the end in mind there. The second thing that winners are remembering is that DE&I is a long game, right? Just like Tacy said, Gwen, you guys are talking about, there's research coming out that has some scary headlines, quite frankly. But the best companies are not letting those headlines and those what feel like setbacks scare them or move their focus away from the importance of DE&I. They're focusing on bringing in diverse talent, diverse thinking, and cultivating inclusive cultures, because that's what's going to make them win. It's what's going to keep talent coming through their door, and it's going to keep them wanting to work for the company and grow with them.
I want to go a little bit in the weeds on this kind of sort of feedback loop and the sort of listening to and then communicating back. And I know, Tacy, some of your research shows that, women receive less feedback than men from their managers and so forth. I want to push on that a little bit because I know that's important to the boost and to the sort of how to get in the room and how to be in the right places, right?
Yeah. So feedback is absolutely critical. It's one element of a bigger picture that Laine was painting a picture about. But to go specifically to that, it is very much proven in research by others and by ourselves that women get less critical feedback that's needed for career growth. Critical feedback that is actionable. And that often happens because managers are worried that how the feedback's going to be perceived. And if you share similar backgrounds and characteristics, like shared gender, then you can feel comfortable giving critical feedback, and that is received in a positive intent. But without that, you can be hesitant to that. And so we have a majority of male leaders who are actually unintentionally creating a negative impact on a woman's ability to grow. And so that's why it's so important to talk about these and prepare leaders with the skills to give critical feedback that both delivers the message, but does it in a human way, no matter what your background is, gender to gender. But it's interesting because, again, that's just a small part. I mentioned the research. Would you like me to dig into some of the data on that?
Absolutely. Laine and I both want to react. I know
Yes.
And it's funny because I was also reading yesterday in Fortune about Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, and I love their $30 billion commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he said he always gets pushback on equity and what the term equity means. And to them, equity means equal treatment, equal opportunity, and equal access, not equal outcomes. So setting the stage with the right amount of equality. So the question is this universal? When we looked at our 1,500 global organizations, the bottom line is equal equity is not there with respect to equal opportunity and equal treatment, because women are missing out on core development experiences, and there are consequences. I know we've put in the chat the link to our statistics, so you can go over and take a look at those. I'll give you the headlines. Fewer women receive formal mentors than men. They miss out on that. Women miss opportunities for key executive responsibilities, particularly with respect to profit and loss. The WBC has been talking about this forever, but the data has a 12% gap at the executive ranks, with male getting profit and loss versus female. Women lag in critical development support. So women are less likely to get leadership skills training, and they're less likely to get access to insights on their own development gaps. They're going to help them grow. Then we already talked about feedback. All of this has consequences. Our data also shows that women are 1.5 times more likely to feel they have to leave their company to advance their career. So think about that. They didn't get those opportunities, and yet and therefore they're going to leave your organizations. And those opportunities, like Laine, I loved how you talked about how the additional, it's not just putting them in, gathering together, it's the networking you get. It's the awareness that my company values me, that they're investing in me. And that creates a reciprocal relationship with the organization, higher engagement and higher retention.
I completely agree, Tacy. One of the things that we teach our women, one of the first lessons in the Women's Leadership Development Program that we have, which, by the way, was created because we found the exact gaps that you had. Women needed some different types of leadership development than was kind of standard in the industry. And the first thing that we teach them is PIE: performance, image, exposure.
Yep.
A lot of women are, taught or programmed to think that if they just keep their head down, they're going to get noticed. But actually, we do need you to focus on performance, but that's only the 10% of the pie. We also need to make sure that you're getting your image, that you're portraying the right image out there, and that you know what your image looks like, and that people recognize you. And then the last bit of that is the exposure, right? And being able to ask for exposure opportunities, and also training leaders to make sure that they are giving exposure opportunities and challenges to parts of the organization so that women can move and that they're mobile into those leadership positions and don't have to go looking outside of an organization for upward mobility.
Completely agree.
I love that. I love that. And I want to push, as we were talking too about, kind of at the beginning of the conversation about corporate purpose, and we hear a lot about how does a company align its values with the employee expectations, or how do you communicate those values? Because, I was just something a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about, if a company has values you don't believe in, you might not want to be there. You might want to go find a place that has them. Right, but I hear often many companies that we have these values. And Laine, what are you saying about how a company can communicate those values and also hear, listen to, and meet or align with people?
Gwen, you're going a little bit soft on me, but I think the question I heard you ask was, what are companies doing to communicate their values and then
Yes.
live into those values? So
Yes.
the answer to that is, first, with how do they communicate those values? It starts at the top. You've got to walk the walk, not just talk. And when I think about the Adecco group, for example, because they're always the top of my mind, right? I'm going to give an example. One of our core values is courage. And to instill courage in your colleagues, and especially your women, is something that we think is of utmost importance. So in our Engage program, again, I'm going to reference it because we just finished a workshop on negotiation and courageous conversations. We actually are teaching people why it's important to have courage, how to have courage and channel it for good in both personally and in your professional career. And the stats are out because we know women don't ask, right? And I think, Tacy, there's probably some research that you can pull out right now from your report talking about that. So we're teaching them to have the courage to ask, the courage to negotiate, and the courage to think bigger and then be bigger. And it's paying off in spades, because what we found is if we teach courage and that core value and how to apply it, 65% of our women who've gone through the program have been promoted into VP plus roles. And then they are teaching the people that they lead how to be courageous, how to ask, how to think bigger and be bigger. So it starts at the top. It's invest in those best and let it trickle on down. And then it starts to trickle all the way back up.
Tacy, any thoughts about that?
Oh, well, I love this. I feel like it's a love nest conversation. We're having all the completely aligned. And it's funny because that I firmly believe that starting with the values and leading with the values of the organization is critical, but it can't be surface talk. It actually needs to be woven into the fabric of everything that the organization does. You can't say that you are committed to diversity, inclusion, and equity without actually doing that, walking the talk every single day inside of organizations. And I just pulled up DDI's own DE&I commitment statement. And I love the part that says, we recognize that our abilities to succeed as an organization, to innovate, to meet the needs of our clients, to be a market leader, depends on the strength of a diverse and inclusive workforce. To maximize that strength of our collective talents, we aspire to, and I give all the data that's there, but love that. And I think it's so important that what you need to do as an organization is really clearly audit your systems. Where are the issues occurring where people are being held back or hidden talent has not been identified? So is there clear definitions of what success looks like as you enter into the organization, as you're promoted? Are you using clear and objective measures to make those decisions that's driving bias out of it? We invented literally behavioral interviewing, where everybody knows to use the STAR to prepare for your interviews. That came out of DDI, and that's been at our core on how we make fair and equitable decisions. But the thing is it really equitable? I mean, when you look at, when I run programs with high potential women, actually with high potential groups, I can look out, and I often look at the gender makeup in that group. And at best, our data shows that high potential groups are consisting of 23% women at best, 23%. How are we ever going to get to gender equity when you're not filling your pipeline early enough with that? And the same thing goes for the selection of CEOs. We look at CEOs and help organizations select out of their top 2 candidates. Well, very often the slate of candidates we're given is not a single female on there, or if there's one, they're oftentimes they're actually never selected in the data that we have. So a lot to unpack in data there, but the fact is, know your numbers, act on your numbers, and live true to your values.
And just to kind of one more piggyback, because we are here on a WBC call, I do think it's also outstanding when companies show their external support by championing and joining organizations like the WBC, because then you have the opportunity to learn from organizations like DDI, from your other companies of purpose. Gwen, I'm not going to go through them, but that's absolutely paramountly important, is that you're continuing to learn and grow as an organization.
learn and grow together, have these conversations. So you both kind of ended as, and this is just an example of us being in Women Business Collaborative together for a long time with the call to action, right? Is there anything you want to add? Is that the call to action? So learn and grow, look at the data, use it. Anything else you want to add to your calls to action?
Yeah, I mean, my summary, what I left with was my 3 bullets are: think bigger to be bigger. Remember, DE&I is a long game, and invest in the best, Gwen. So, and I think that investment also goes externally as well. So that's what I will leave as the call to action.
And I'll echo the same. Know your data, act on your data, live true to your values.
Love it. Well, that's what we're trying to do every day. And that's part of, that's what part of this is, right? Is for us to have these conversations, talk about it, learn and discuss what we're doing. So thank you both for your time today. And thank you to the audience for being here with us. And it's all we have time for. So we invite everyone to wbcollaborative.org to learn more about our initiatives, which are to increase women in the C-suite, CEOs, and in the boardroom, to address the underrepresentation of women in STEM and even in available capital for women, and to build and advance this pipeline of women leaders that are going to bring gender and pay equity, diversity, equity, inclusion to the business landscape. So thank you, Tacy and Laine, for helping us talk today and what you do every day with us about how we're going to achieve this target. And to the audience, join us weekly. Follow us on social media at WB Collaborative on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and have a wonderful Thursday. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks.